finally can. That's impressive. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the T.O.A Podcast. I am your host, Onvermel, and thank you for joining me. Today, once again, it is Just Ek. How you doing? Okay, you can't use a Nui Jaga as a sign language machine.
Bad Scorpion, bad!
Squash, get them to the
I'm
side.
Ek. How's it going?
No, pretty good. I mean, yesterday was, we're recording this the day after Bionicle, 2 days after Bionicle day after your birthday. So I feel like we're on a good roll here. And you also just got Lego today, so it's like 3 days in a row. Pretty dang good, I think.
And it's middle of August, one of the best times of year for this elephant night.
And especially when we were younger too, we had a lot to do. And August was always a good time of year. But, yeah, no, it's like Bionicle Day, so keeping that trend, we'll talk again about Bionicle today. Specifically, I think we're going to be discussing what Matoran is the best Matoran. I mean, more so, what Matoran build, or just a general conversation about them, because over the 10 years that LEGO had produced Bionicle Gen 1, there was 6 different Matoran builds.
We're not going to count anything from Gen 2, because there was no Matoran.
No, they were. It was confirmed near the very end. Yes, there was a magazine, I think, across in Europe or something.
Well, I guess we are going to include
somewhere. The villagers on Akoto were referred to as Matoran. Like at the very end, like the last bit of lore that was added to Gen 2 was that they were actually no, that was the last bit of lore I think that Gen 2 fans discovered.
It's basically as he was getting canceled and shoved out the door. It's like the one guy yelled, "They're Matoran!" Slam.
I don't know if they were just trying to end on a slightly better note. Like someone in there was like, okay, people are going to be pissed. Let's just call them Matoran just to make people a little bit more happy. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that was like the last bit of lore. But this is one thing that actually, even if Zacto is here, I think we'd all have different opinions what our favorite Matoran is. Like, at least for build-wise. Even How1, I think you and How1 actually both agree what your favorites are. Wait, no, he doesn't.
I think we should just take a look at the Matoran, starting from, the first to the last, in the order that they released. So let's look at the Tohunga.
Or Mctorin, as most people refer. Because I think most people actually refer to him as Mctorin.
Because Tohunga was kind of kiboshed because the Maori culture is like, we don't want you using that word.
It was a little offensive to
yes,
use that.
We should call them
that'd
Matoran.
be like having a alien species out there known as popes. A bunch of space popes out there. But they're little green men.
Yes, and Mctorin is good enough anyways, because they're McDonald's Matoran, so I just wanted to the Mctorin.
I will admit, though, I do like the word Tohunga as it is, but any of the classic words from 2001 of that are based on, the Maori language or directly taken, I always enjoy. I just like that style, but the term Mctorin is cute. It is very cute, which is the best way to describe them. Cute.
Yeah, I think that's really the only word to someone if they're cute. Their little disc throwing function is rather fun.
Also, do you know how long it took me to realize that the disc could slide on the back of their head?
It took us way too long.
I saw someone on YouTube do it and I went, holy Makuta fish.
Mind blow.
Unfortunately, my discs never fit very well on the back of the head. They slide off really easily.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem, was just the material that the heads were made out of. Just a little too soft.
Although, to be honest, McDonald's never had such a good promotion ever again. Ever.
Best McDonald's toy ever.
The thing is, that's the one toy from McDonald's I remember looking at, wishing we could get. And that was I think before we really realized you could just buy the toys by themselves. Because that was the first McDonald's toys I think any of us kids had wanted.
I do remember very visually being in McDonald's and seeing these and really wishing that our mom would get us some. I'm not sure if I actually said anything.
I think we all remember the same memory. I think I remember hearing that she did, I think, maybe try getting them later, but I think they were gone. Because also we got into Bionicle a bit later, so we might have gone just the tail end of that promotion noticing. I don't know.
Or maybe there was just none that day.
But
maybe they were
interestingly enough, the Mctorin did have a bit of life outside of Happy Meals, because one version of them was used with the Boxer the next year in 2002, which was the only Matoran in 2002 was New Peru, which was, okay, sweet, know them, but in 2001 they had another special set called Power Pack, which had another brown Matoran, Hafu, and he had a special chrome How.
Everyone knows about the chrome How.
I love that piece so much, as well as a CD-ROM with music and some information, which, so the Mctorin had a little bit of life, and as far as I can tell, They also survived up until 2003. At least Huki did in some regards. Because I got a sealed Huki and his poster was smaller. It had 2003 advertisement, and I remember reading somewhere online that at least Hukis were found like in some mall as like a promotion.
Somewhere in Europe, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it was in Europe, but I don't know if any guys. I think it's just Huki. But cute little Tohunga, really adorable, but really not posable.
That is their biggest flaw. Like, you can move their feet side to side. Their arms have limited movement.
It was like having a teddy bear.
You can't pose them at all. So as an action figure, they're pretty terrible.
I mean, in fairness, in 2001, no one had great posability.
But yeah.
So they did kind of fit in with that pretty well. But
it has the least posability of anything.
Although I will say this,
the Rahi.
I think they have one of the best functions of the throwing discs.
Oh yes, for sure.
I might have a contender for that, but so they were really cute,
the throw
really nice.
Are pretty good arms, but they're very stiff and don't look very natural. So the Tohunga arm just looks better as a limb than the Throwbot arm.
It is much more better implemented than the Throwbots one, I think, but the Throwbot one works better. So
I think we'd have to test this out. This sounds like a future video.
Oh well, no, there's a future video that I want to do about testing out all the ammo functions of Bionicle. But moving on, then. Also, I said 2002 only had the Boxer with new power, which was still Tohunga. But in 2003, they revamped them. Still pretty much the same color scheme, using the same feet and head.
And some of them the same characters, even.
But they had steroids. The Make Great Spirit Man knew he zapped them and they got buff.
Well, basically, their legs have twice as many articulation points. They can actually walk. But the legs can still go side to side.
But they also had, posable arms. Yeah, using the Borak arms.
The Borak arms worked very well.
And then the swiveling body function made him feel more akin to the T.O.A and Trog with gears and just moving parts.
I think because they had just a little bushing at the end, I think if they had put another gear instead, it would have been easier, but I'm fairly certain they have just a little bushing on the back.
Stability, probably, because I think gears would fall off easier.
Well, also, because when you put two Matoran on, Puku or the Gaku bird...
Oh, yeah, because the baby goes sliding right between the feet.
Yeah, just that little bit of extra space.
But the 2003 Matoran gave the Matoran actually, you could pose them, you can move them, and this is the only time.
And aesthetically speaking, they're still quite similar looking. They're kind of short and wide,
especially compared to the T.O.A Nuva who were around in the Rockshi. They were still small villagers, but they still used the same head. Huki was still the exact same color scheme. It was still
they had the same.
They were basically just what it felt like was. Is it Tohunga with it, but then someone these were the 20th anniversary revamps of the sets where they're the exact same, but they're better and more posable, like many other toy companies have done.
Just
2 years,
not 20.
However, this is the only time in all of the Bionicle run where the set of 6 weren't 6 different colors. They were, but not really. You had teams of 2. Basically, you had 2 Tan Matoran who had different alternating, one had
2 Po Matoran, 2 Ko Matoran, and 2 Ga Matoran. This is obviously because in the Master Light movie, the Koli teams, there's 2 on each, and
And you were able to get 2 from the Titans with Takua and Jala, but
so you got 4 colors.
It's still the only time that that Bionicle theme ever had. You couldn't get a green, a black, a brown, a red, a white, a blue.
The poor League and Onu Matoran.
I mean, you could stretch and say you got 4 out of 6 because of the Titans. You almost got a black because Hafu looks like Teipu. There's no way you can say you got a green out of this.
I tried to convince myself that Kopik was an Onu Matoran at first.
Well, we also didn't understand why weren't there 6 colors. Despite only being 3 years, we already knew how Bionicle worked. There were 6 sets, 6 colors.
The closest that kind of came to this was in the Mari, when there was just the 2 Matoran and the 2 Hydruka. I mean,
we'll talk to that a little bit.
There was only 4.
Yeah, but there was only 4. But this one actually had doubles of colors, which... As a fan of Po Matoran, it was great because there was 2 Tohunga Po Matoran, there was 2 Mad Po Matoran. Po Matoran were living up the high life at this point.
If you like Ko Matoran and Ga Matoran and Po Matoran, you're like, this is great.
Unfortunately, you and Zactag kind of got screwed in that year.
And if you like Ta Matoran, you're like, man, I have to get 2 Titans.
Yeah, the Lima.
But I also get the bird.
Thing is, at least Onu Matoran had the box sword, so they had 2. Lima, anyone fans of greens got screwed.
Yeah, poor.
And their bird that they had was ridden by a tag guy. It was just
Jala's riding the Gaku.
Not Kongu.
Kongu.
But the Matoran with their Coley, I don't love the Coley stick.
The function where you actually use a gear
Because
to play Coley.
okay, the reason why I don't like the Coley stick is, have you ever tried playing street hockey with a real hockey puck? It doesn't work as well as a ball, and that's the problem with the Matoran because they have Coley sticks that can like bat it around, but the ball is just a little puck. I mean, because they're plastic and small, it works well enough, but it never worked as well as I think an actual ball would have, like a Zamor. Like
I think the problem, if there actually was a ball, it'd roll around way too far. Like the puck actually.
Tell that
kept
to
it...
Lego nowadays with the little tiny studs. What I do like about the puck though is it has a pin connection, so it's more useful.
Like if you actually have an arena with like walls, and the ball would be great, but if you don't, like your ball's gonna go off rolling everywhere.
Yeah,
that's a theory I got.
Like I'm
Plus,
pretty sure
it was
that's
just
why.
easier to get the mold to hold the.
Probably. Like I understand why they did it, but it was still one of those things where I never quite liked the puck design of the ball.
Partially because in the movie
it's also
clearly
called
a ball.
Plus, it's called a Coley ball.
In the movie, it's a ball.
It's not like It's not like they have a made-up word for ball, like they have a made-up word for animals, where it's like, oh, it's I don't know. Just bear with me. I'm just gonna call it a kakama. I know that's in math, but like as an example, they don't call like, oh, it's the kakama. And you go, what's a kakama? It's like, oh, it's like a. If you use English, it's ball. It's like, no, it's just a Coley ball. They don't have like a made-up word like rahi. You don't say rahi animals. They're just rahi. So we can't even be like, that's not a ball. But needless to say, I really like those Matoran. They have probably the best posability.
Their legs are a little limited.
Except for maybe the Mari. But when we get to Mari, I'll compare the two. Why I think the Mari might have, I don't know, why the Mata might be a tiny bit better than the Mari.
But moving on to the next kind of Matoran, the Mctorin. Mctorin, you're just shortening
the business suit Matoran.
They work very great for being in the big city Matoran.
Tall, proper, prim, and proper. The British. The more like you have the foresty woodlands of Matanui with all the
They
nature.
They look more like hunters and all that, like they're protecting.
These guys are like business suits workers.
Yeah, the more tall, stiff posture works very well for Matanui.
Especially with the T.O.A getting taller, them getting taller.
But they did suffer a little bit. Like when your disc launcher's not on their back, they are very flat.
They basically have the Hero Factory problem.
Yeah, and especially they suffered pretty badly from blue pins.
But then I think it worked well because it was spread out enough and consistent that with all of them that it was kind of more like they had nipples and a belt out of blue.
They were definitely one of the first sets.
They could give you the thumbs up. They had weapon storage though, which was amazing.
Yes, they looked better with their weapon on their back. I would say they were one of the first sets that suffered from pins and axles sticking out. Even with the blue one, Vizola, the normal blue with the dark blue, like it works, but it does stick out.
It's still noticeable.
It's noticeable.
Yeah. What I do like about them is I think the disc. I like how they brought back the disc function, and I think the disc launcher is just like one of the most iconic bionicle weapons. Because who else? When what universe have someone thought, let's grab a frisbee but put it in a launcher and see what happens?
In the words of T.O.A Kama,
a disc launcher. Exactly. Which the fact that a T.O.A had the same weapon as Matoran, I thought was kind of interesting. Like, it was less cool to play with.
Vikama's launcher was honestly pretty bad.
I think we got one time to shoot it when it went well. Like, I think one of the ones we gone later actually shot decently well.
It's definitely a little harder to use, but yeah, as a launcher, it doesn't work. It looks cool, but as a launcher, it sucks.
I do love the Matoran's color scheme, like with their masks.
More
like,
information on that someday.
The masks on the Matoran, I think, were beautiful.
The recoloring of
Well, the melded. Like, the melded can be annoying after when you have a bunch of them, and you don't want to use silver in everyone's color scheme. But at the same time, it is just really nice looking. Like, Tahuti, it's a very nice looking model.
There's nothing wrong with Nuri's mask.
And the Taraga's mask.
Nuri's is the best. There's a little in joke between.
No, don't look through my history of the YouTube. There's nothing there. Nothing there. But moving on. Nuri. Matoran were really nice, and my biggest problem with them, like the one thing I have issues with them is their arms are almost too short, that they can't touch their fingers together.
Yes, especially when you compare it just how the Matoran were. their big, long, wide, lanky arms versus these tiny little short.
The short legs I didn't mind on them, but their arms were just like
their legs were fine.
The thing about the Matoran legs, no matter who you use them on, the Rihangas or on the Matoran, like they always just feel just a tiny bit too tiny and like angled
They are
in.
the smallest bionicle limb.
But there is a level of charm that I really like with the Matoran, and for me personally, they might be my favorite Matoran. Maybe because one thing about them is over the Mata and Tohangas, they use the T.O.A Mata heads with eyes.
Yeah, their little TikTok head thing is
but because
a little annoying too, especially when your blue pin's a little loose.
That I can get away with, but that's more posability than the Mata Matoran had. They could actually cock their heads going, eh.
Yes, they actually you could easily put a Mata head on a Mata Matoran.
But the thing is, if you want to keep the standard sets,
yeah,
they were the first Matoran to actually have eyes.
And the recoloring of eyes was lovely too.
So it's like I think that actually they're like the only Matoran with eyes now that I think about it, because the next two don't. Except for maybe the Ave Matoran, but they have their own problem with eyes.
Yeah, they've got their own.
So I'm like, honestly, the Matoran they have their flaws, but I think they're really, I really like them, and I think how one agrees also likes them the most, if I'm correct. But after them, we have probably the most. Again,
you have to jump a couple years because there was
in 05 there was nothing.
There was the Rihangas, the small sets, but they're not.
But it was the first year, actually, it's the only year that technically didn't have a Matoran per se, because Agori kind of counted as a Matoran. But like, it was the first year that really didn't have any Matoran. Like, you have the Rihangas, as you said, but they aren't Matoran. They're just the small sets. So when you get to 2006, it was the
Voyatoran.
One thing I do like about them is because they use the same feet and most of them use the same leg as the Matoran, there is a bit of cohesion between them.
I'd say they actually pulled off, disfigured Matoran quite well.
Let's be honest, that's just Greg excusing the set's design, but
it was a good ass pull.
But let's say about these guys is head articulation, actual ball and socket head articulation.
They're all very fun and posable, except you, Kazi. You suck, Kazi.
Kazi, yeah, he brings down the whole batch of them. And Balta's arms are a little lame, if you ask me.
Yeah, some of them arms are a little annoying to work with, like Kazi.
Yeah, Kazi, yes.
Kazi has no hip. He got ankles.
Kazi sucks.
And he has no head. He just has a socket. So Kazi is the worst of them. Funny enough, he's got like the same build as Taraga Lee Khan almost.
They came out the same year, but they pretty much do. So when you have the same build as a good guy Polybag, you're in low territory. He didn't have
some of the good guy Polybags make perfectly fine Voyatoran, like the good guy 07.
Yeah, but 06 Matoran
and just slap a mask on.
Were quite fun builds, and they had that kind of hunched. This isn't Mechanui Matoran. These are like people who have to fight for themselves. My biggest problem with them is a lot of them didn't have hands, and they just had the exact same match as the T.O.A Metro. I wish they had recolors of the Metro masks.
They had such a perfect opportunity to recolor some masks. And
honestly, they were cheap, basically, sets to make. They didn't have to get any. Well, technically, Dalu has a slightly different shade of trans blue than Galley, but I think that was more so just how they were making that trans.
Yeah, they just.
It wasn't intentional, I don't think.
Yeah, they was definitely like not planned. To, let's do a different trans for the no camo mask. No.
Yeah, no, like technically there was no real recolors. There was variations of shades, but there was no intentional recolors. But they do have a charm, and like Greg was able to find a way in the story to basically say, no, they're basically fixed up, deformed Matoran, so which works well. And the fact that they do kind of look like the Mechanui Matoran, at least aesthetically, which is kind of nice because got the Toanga and the Madame Torn look very similar, and they got these two that look very similar. So at least so far there's like kind of pairings.
Some continuity.
Yeah, so continuity. And the Void Matoran, the biggest problem with Void Matoran is they have no eye sockets. Now, unlike the Mctorin and the Tom and the Madame were designed for, so eyes like a different head with use the eye, so that's fine. But the Void Matoran had the Mechanui eyes with no eye stalk, so it would just look dead inside, which made them feel a little more dull.
I'm pretty sure the reasons are basically because A, expense, and B, it does limit a lot of the head posability.
Well, they technically
in
would
them.
have to always be looking a little bit down because they didn't have their short eye stalks, and
And just the way like the head goes into the Borak foot, like their movement would be a lot more limited.
like literally they would have to, I think, look a tiny bit down unless you had it perfectly straight. So I get why they did it, but it is still a little bit sad. But on to 2007.
Yeah, we're pretty much done with the 2006. 2007 had some actually pretty great Matoran.
I don't know if I disagree with that statement.
I wouldn't say they're necessarily the best Matoran, but they're very good, solid builds.
Okay, that's fair. One thing,
They're definitely starting to get a bit larger though, and specifically,
Matoran getting larger too. So
yeah, I guess with the larger, just everything, they kind of have to grow along with it. I think the biggest failure of these Matoran is the fact there was only 2 of them,
kind of.
and the ones in the Karzani set have too large of feet.
See, there's a lot to unpack with the Mario Matoran because, as you said, there was only 2 of them. There's 4 Matoran quote-unquote sets, but 2 of them were used up as Hydruka, which were just creatures, like a little Rahi.
And honestly, those sets
Are
are
They're probably like
great.
the crappiest sets. Actually, they're my least favorite Vongle sets. And we'll be talking about what most people think are the worst Vongle sets. But
I would probably have to put the Hydruka as one of my least favorite ones because at a time when I had no spare parts,
it was the
I
only
basically got a spare Makuta set. I'm like, oh, I can actually mock without taking apart my sets. I need some more parts. Bye, Hydruka!
the set that he was willing to actually break. But the Mario Matoran, there were certain things I really did like about him was recolor masks of using the T.O.A Hagas masks and recolors.
Unfortunately,
Having a green Matoran again, like actually they chose green over like red or something, so that was really nice. Dakar being yellow was like, he's not brown anymore, but honestly he's a very nice looking character.
the problem they had with the recoloring though is they took
The green character's mask and made it green.
Iruni's mask and made that the green one.
Yeah,
That's just a little.
But the thing is though, if they had Dakar with Iruni's mask, gold and yellow are very similar.
True.
They were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place with that one. But, that's... But then, we got Karzani's set, which had 2 Matoran. And as you were saying, the biggest problem was the feet.
Yeah, using the Metru feet with Dakar and Defilek was fine. That looked good.
Size.
But when they used the larger Inika feet for the Sarda
You
and
could
Idris,
say it's because they were living underwater and they designed to have flipper feet.
it
You're
does
welcome,
work,
Ken.
especially with the blue one. I don't know which one's Sarda and which one's Idris.
I think Idris is the
I think
red.
Sarda's the red.
Oh, crap.
Oh.
Okay, the problem is we've never gone in depth about these 2 particular characters. It's kind of like...
The fact that I can remember their names, I'm actually proud of myself.
Idris, I keep thinking it's red, but I feel like every time I think it's it, I get it wrong. So I think Sarda's red, but I'm not going to die on this hill.
We may have to put
But
a note in
what
the
is
thing.
nice about them is you have a recolor of a Metro mask, a dark blue Winua mask or a dark
But
blue Ruru.
unfortunately, they didn't do it with the other one.
What I think is also unfortunate is, okay, so you have essentially between Karzani, the 2 Hydruka, and the 2 Matoran, you have 6 small characters, right?
Exactly.
Perfect,
lovely.
6. Okay, so we had Dakar, the brown, quote unquote. You had the Felix, the green. You had the 2 Hydrukas, red and blue. Okay, perfect. So we have the white and black to have with Karzani. No,
we got blue and
the
red again.
which as a set looks better, more colorful, but
Yeah.
it's like it is kind of, it's like, especially for you who basically missed out black on Mad Matoran, you missed out black there. Black got gypped a lot, it felt like.
But black is kind of a generic,
So,
bland, boring Blacktron color.
so it's like, I get why they didn't do it, but I was like, I kind of thought it was a missed opportunity to have like technically all 6 without having 6 small sets.
kind of in a similar in Gen 2 with Masters.
But
No,
mine
not the Masters.
with the Uniters with
Uniters.
Kopaka and his beast.
Mellum, I think.
But I think so, yeah. But my problem with the Mario Matoran were their arms,
that is their biggest downfall. Because,
and they still don't have eyes.
Because they use
Well, sort of.
the Mata
The Vaki
weapon arm, the Vaki arm, they have no wrists.
And even then, just how their shoulders work, they can't get much posability. Like, the weapons kind of make up for it, but, like, their heads and legs have great posability, their bodies have designed nicely, but the arms, and the fact that they can have eyes, but they don't have eyes.
Unfortunately, yeah, Dakar and Tefila didn't come with eyes. Sarda and Idris in the Karzani set did. So they get bonus.
Because you're in a
plus-
big Titan set that has extra budget, they can get it, plus they have pipes. Like, so they got the eyes, but they got the bigger feet, so they kind of round off to all being as good. But I do like the look of 4 of them. Like the dark blue with the trans blue, the dark red, the yellow, the dark green. Like, they're nice looking Matoran. Especially all having, like, black highlights. Which you haven't really seen black highlights since, like, Nada years.
Personally speaking, I would put them as probably possibly my second favorite Matoran.
They have unique made-up bodies, which were really nice. Like, kind of inspiring, actually.
Yeah,
Actually,
it definitely opened our eyes a bit.
as parts packs, they were nice. And also, shoulder-mounted weapons. I'm always a sucker for shoulder-mounted guns.
Yeah, meh.
Like I said, I have a thing. Transformers opened my eyes to shoulder-mounted everything.
What
But,
about
you know,
shoulder-mounted shoulders?
well, that'd be shoulders Inception, and then, well, how many shoulders can you have on top of shoulders? Does that mean you have to have extra arms too?
It's very good.
I got questions for a philosopher now. But moving on to the next bit of Matoran, we have the Ave and Shadow Motor, which most people would say are the worst Bionicle sets because they are almost juniorized by using like all new parts where the bodies are one piece, their arms are one piece, and their feet are one piece, their head's one piece, and the mask one piece. Like, they have so few parts.
Looking back, like sitting back, looking at them objectively as a toy, they're pretty good. But as a Bionicle fan, what we've grown up to expect, and the previous years and all the other stuff, they are not good.
Compared as a building experience, they are the worst. And their transparent heads, I hate.
I hate them as heads. I kind of like started using them as, you know,
Limbs,
especially the trans neon green ones.
The
trans orange, I don't care.
They have their uses, but
their heads I find right now are more useful as parts than their limbs are. I really don't like any of the limbs that they came out with.
I like the right angle limbs, like the skinny one, because I can use those in cankles and shoulders. I found uses for those enough.
Yeah, those are
I just have way too
definitely
many lime though.
Do you have enough lime that are actually intact?
Yeah, I got. Do you have any Gors? I forgot like 2 Gors. That's like 12 right there. That's all you'll ever need. But then, you know, you have the Tanma legs. Those ones I've used in bodies, and I find I can use them in like enough locations where it's like they're not terrible, but the Solic limbs, those ones I don't like. Those ones I just don't like.
They are also, definitely the worst.
Even with the body, because they're beefier, like they make posing even harder with the models.
Mind you, the limbs are nothing compared to the bodies. Both of the bodies are the 2 worst pieces to come out in 2008. I would take these cracked, broken line pieces over these useless hunks of balls attached to it.
Yeah, at this point, basically, the Matoran lost their cute factor, or any, like, adorableness.
They're not good parts packs like the Mari. They're not cute like the Tohunga.
They did have nice new mask molds.
Their masks were definitely nice. They're not great.
But that's about all they have going for them. They're also, their color scheme wasn't that great. They're like a one color, like a muted, like orange, lime, and white. All kind of more muted compared to like the old felt like brighter colors with dark blade.
Like, those are pretty decent bright colors, but when you just, you know, drown them in dark blade,
it didn't really work with their favor, I think. Especially when you don't have enough parts to balance the colors out.
If they had, like, even just a little bit of black in them, like the T.O.A Mata have black in their shoulders and stuff.
The problem is because they have so few parts, it's like nowhere to add that third color.
Yeah, they're just two-tone colors. They're pretty bad.
A nostalgia for them because it's fun, I think, building a lot of these people.
We haven't even talked about the Shadow Matoran.
The Shadow Matoran, I like their wings. I think they're cuter with the wings. And also, I like their feet. They didn't have Darkblade T.O.A feet, so I think they kind of worked better. Although, Photok did give us orange T.O.A feet. I thank him for that.
Yes. The Shadow Matoran, I think, are a little bit better because they're just a little more...
They also don't use Solux limbs at all. None of them use Solux limbs.
They're less bland.
Not by much. Only by a little bit. Like, they're mildly better, but I think their colors work better because it's black and it's just dark.
Yeah, because they actually use black, not dark blade. Black is just better than dark blade.
I mean, also, the whole of 2008, the Makuta are better than the T.O.A. That's just how it goes. Unless you're talking about their vehicles, then the T.O.A's got the better vehicles.
Auxiliary T9.
The good guys got better vehicles. Because Swamp Strider to like Vulture, the good guys got better vehicles, but the Makuta's got better sets.
Just pure like The Fantoka, the Makuta, the better set. The Mystica, the Makuta are the way better
However,
sets. And that's not
and
even...
then what kind of and then in this wave, yeah, you sure you got all technically 6 color Matoran, but they aren't all 6 elements of Matoran, which bothered me. Although Photog was orange, so of course he wasn't a Pomatoran. He's a Tomato Matoran.
Technically speaking, he's a Tamator.
Technically speaking, literally speaking, he's an Ave Matoran. They're all Matoran of Light. That also some of the Matoran of Shadow or just evil Matoran of Light. However, you did have a Comatoran, Mazika,
Yes.
and then Voltraz was a Matoran of Fire. So and then Volt and Vikan was another Matoran of Light. So you had you actually had the most 9 Matoran in 1 year, which is actually the most amount of Matoran any year's had.
Mazika and Voltraz, those two, their builds are... There's nothing extra about them. Vikan at least...
have got a full new mask. And also, Voltraz actually was all one color, pretty much. He didn't have the dark blade or black, which I think for the pilots, I kind of have started to enjoy that.
Voltraz is honestly probably the ugliest, just because he's one
But at the
solid
same
dark
time,
red. And his
but the ugliness is kind of charming, though.
But he's probably my favorite of the lot, just because as a character, I had a lot of fun with
Mazika
him.
reminds me too much of Solek, and the mask doesn't work with the head, I think, too well.
And the fact that it's the only silver thing, and
I think Mazika's ugly.
The head molds were awful, because their heads are sticking out way so far forward. And their skinny, flat bodies...
They work well with the chunkier of the two bodies, like the shorter one, because it kind of sits back and has high shoulders.
It's honestly even more pronounced with the stars.
Like I said, it works well with the Shadow Matoran because they're deformed evil versions.
Yeah, it works fine there, but the Matoran, yeah.
But like I said, but you also were saying that Vikan is really slightly more interesting because he uses more parts because his wings are attached slightly differently, and he's got his hands and feet have a few extra parts. So
yeah, he's a little more interesting, even
barely. They basically
not necessarily better.
They could have done the exact same thing using the same amount of parts, but they chose to use more parts just because. So, but they were the last real Matoran that we got. You know what? Basically, since Mechanui, the first
because 2009 didn't have any Matoran, it had the Agori,
which were Matoran and the Matoran.
They were an improvement on the Ave Matoran,
but
builds.
They still were the same build. They were just more colorful and had a bit better parts, and the heads were better designed. They weren't just they didn't look like hunchbacks all the time.
Yeah, the Glatorian heads just were so much better than.
And like I said, they just had more vibrant colors, but they still weren't amazing.
Yeah, they kind of just kibosh Dark Blade, so except for attack, but it worked fine with him.
Yeah, but with all the Gen 1 Matoran, I would say the first 3 ones were the best. The Mari kind of suffered from not having enough. They kind of got the short run in there. And Mechanui, I think you could say is arguably the best because it has all 6 colors. They have good posability.
They have eyes.
They may not let's say be the top dog. They the thing they have is they have all 6. Mari might have better posability, but you get more variety in Metru, and they have eyes. The Mata may be more fun, but again, the Metru got the posability over the Mata. They kind of at least a leg up on everyone else, at least in one factor. I think they would average out.
I think the fact that they have the eyes, they all
and
have their own color of their eyes,
Mari
really
don't
brings
have
them
storage.
about.
They have the weapon storage. They have the eyes.
Well, the Mari, when you take the weapons off, they look pretty.
And they're not too small or too big. I would say the average out is the best Matoran.
Now, personally speaking, my favorite are the Matoran. I just have an attachment to them.
I have a 3-way tie between the Mctorin, Mata, and Metru. I have the most Mctorin. I have 30 plus of them. Although I have just shy of I have over a dozen.
I have about 15
Mata.
Mctorin. I pretty much have 2 copies of all of them with a couple more.
Yeah, even the Mata Matoran I have a fair bit, and most of my made-up Matoran are designed around, are based on the Mata build. Basically, with
kind of mixed in with the Turaga.
But yeah, Turaga and that put together and you got them because so it's
we'll let you figure out how that works.
The Mata Matoran, I like them individually more, but as groups I like to Hunga more. But aesthetically, I think I like the Metru the most. In a grander universe, I like the Metru. As if you had a bunch of different species, you have T.O.A, Turaga, Vaki, all these different stuff. I like the Metru Matoran. When you have just a bunch of Matoran, I like the Tohunga the most. But if you have just one individual with you, I'm taking the Mana Matoran.
I honestly think that Tohunga groups bring them down.
It just looks so cute in groups.
The
It's a
fact
little
that they
mob.
have no posability really.
That's why they work
near
better with
groups.
more than just one.
When you have a few, I think it's okay, but when you have like a huge
Maybe
mob of them,
there's a point where there's too many and then it goes down, maybe. But I don't know. The thing is, like, also it depends what you're looking for in Matoran. Like, if you want the helpless villager, Tohunga do that very well because they're tiny.
helpless.
In fact, I think the Metro actually do the helpless Matoran pretty well because they're kind of dainty.
Yeah.
Like, they're very dainty Matoran, those ones are, but they're the city slickers. While the Mata and the Mari and the Void are
If you
much
want,
more
a tough
adventurer.
adventuring tough guy,
Give me the Mata.
the Mad are the best.
What I like about the Mata is they can do what no one else can. They can sling their holistic over their shoulder. I just love people who sling stuff over their shoulders. Like, no one else can do that because they have wrists.
The Matoran Torrent almost can.
With their disc, but more like they're just
But
kind of.
it kind of just looks stupid.
It does look stupid. But I'm going to say, the weapon storage of the Metro just. I like weapons. The fact that Metro New Year's a year, 2004 is a year with weapon storage, was something that really it only did. But
Pretty
I'm so
much,
glad
yeah.
that they did. So glad.
It was
that they
definitely
did.
a gimmick of that year, but it was a very nice gimmick.
Discs and weapon storage. It was a great gimmick, and I thank them for it. And then, there's the one other Matoran with the Gen 2 villagers. Now, because the protectors, they're the Turag of the story. They are the same species as the villagers, so they're all Matoran. And you know what?
Those are, I would say, arguably one of the best Bionicle sets, period.
You get
They're
all
small, they've got tons of posability, they're very solid looking,
vibrant
builds.
and colorful, unique.
One has a gun chest that doesn't look out of place.
A titty cannon.
And it's really amusing that, yes, it's
Korgot's the girl.
Korgot is the girl character with a gun chest.
The blasting bust. There's so many Nick jokes that could be made out of that. But I'm like, hey, it's the purple one that's the girl. I'm okay with this. Onvermel is approved.
At the time, I was like, oh, it's the Onu Matoran's the girl. I'm okay with this.
They broke the mold of, and I think that was a good decision. But it was just, those builds are compact, cute. Okay, well, I would say most
Some
of them are.
Some of them had a little problems with their shoulders.
Not Nilku. The red and the white was Isocore.
Isotor?
Isotor is the white, and the red was
Normatu?
Normatu, I think so. Because I know Nilku's the brown.
Yes.
Korgot's the
black.
The Vizuna's the green, and the blue is something close to Vizuna, but it wasn't Vizola. But they were just really good, and their weapons were kind of unique. Like, yes, they all had the same shape of mask.
And they all had the stud blaster.
But I think that shape of mask worked really well.
And the fact that they, dual molded all the different trans with a different color.
And also,
nice.
they're all colorful. Like, those, I think, if you count them as actual Matoran, like, comparing them to all Gen 1, they are the best sets. Are they my favorite Matoran?
I mean, they also have, probably 3 times as many pieces
they're
as
too
any
buff
other
to be
Matoran.
nice villagers.
No.
Unless you take away the weapons, which is why that's the biggest problem with Korgot. If you don't want to, customize Mac too much, then if you have actually does have everyone with busts and
gun chests,
cannon chests. But they're really, really nice, and they're the only villagers that Gen 2 had. They didn't have a second wave. Well, technically Kimu, I guess, is a villager. We don't know if he's the same species as the rest. I'm assuming he is. Gen 2 didn't really explain why he can turn into a Toa or how. I'm assuming he's the same species, and he's just them buffer, even buffer. He's the buffest of the buff. But no, those guys have, because they all have pretty much all have elbows, knees, full articulation. They're beautiful. But like I said, I just like them. They're good. But the only problem with them is the mask popping off function, really.
They had that
the whole Gen 2 problem.
The whole Gen 2 mask thing is a discussion for another day, perhaps, about how much it actually sucked.
Yeah, but the nice thing about actually, I just realized because the protectors are so small, they didn't have the CCBS gappy system because they're too small to have gaps. Although Normatu, I feel like the name sounds wrong, but when we're saying Normatu, the red one, he didn't really have good arms.
Yeah,
weirdly enough,
his shoulders were.
I liked him though, despite it, but the white I would say had it worse. They kind of felt very
Some of them could have used it an extra little socket limb to give them elbows.
Lucky enough, though, the weapons kind of were an extension, so if they had their weapons, you didn't really notice it. Similar to the Mario Matoran.
Yes.
If they had the weapons, you didn't notice the lack of articulation, but once you take away the weapons, you kind of go, oh, yeah, that. I think Nilku's the best. Nilku and Vizuna are pretty much like the two best. They're nice.
Offhand, I really can't disagree.
Well, the white's
been
got,
so
the
long
blue's got the
since
turbines on her, so she always felt a little scrawny. The white and the red have the really chubby
I remember
arms.
the white and red, just
the
ones
black's
that
got
had
the
most
gun
issues.
chest, so Korgot's a little bit weird that, but it leaves Vizuna and Nilku. And, Vizuna, you can also make a big Zack out of it, so what can I say? Green's good there. But we pretty much covered Matoran as a whole, and, looking back, I realized I like the Boy New Matoran a lot more than I remembered. And
They're cute, and they're good for what they are.
that's pretty much what you can say about most Matoran. They're good for what they are. And, they brought out a lot of good pieces, like a lot of different ones, and
In some cases, good recolors, specifically the, original.
like the 6 metric Matoran
Mctorin, yeah.
had really good. So, really great stuff just overall. And you know what? I'll be interested. I can guarantee you how one's going to comment on this, having his own thoughts about his Matoran he
We'd
likes.
love to hear yours, too.
Yes, if any of you 12 people are listening, please tell me your favorite Matoran. I actually want to hear what other people's opinion are. I know there's people. Look, I know there's people who listen to this podcast who don't. I don't know. I don't know if they make it this far into it. I don't like looking at the stats because it's too much work, and it might be too heartbreaking. But this has been the T.O.A Podcast. I have been your host, Onvermel, and we're retiring from the night.